Mr. and Mrs. Robinson, I believe that this is probably your daughter, and this used to be her boyfriend. They have a child together. He also has 2 children from a prior marriage or relationship that lived with you.
Yes.
And you let him come to live with you.
Yes.
And your daughter was 21 years old when you let him come to live with you. Why did you let him come to live with you?
Because he had 2 children that needed a stable home, and our daughter was pregnant.
Is she living at home with you now with the baby?
Yes.
That would have been perfect the first time around. Because what you did was compound a mistake. And now you want him to pay for some expenses that you say he promised he would pay if he moved in with his children, and let you take his children as tax deductions because you supported them. What?
It's just, I would have never gave my taxes up when I have 2 kids of my own, and it was only a little bit of tax money. I stayed with them because Erica did not get along with my mother, and if I could have stayed at my brother and my mother's house the whole time, but instead I go to live with her because she says her parents won't charge us anything to stay there to help us get on our feet. Next thing you know, I'm here because of this. I don't get to see my kid that's born on the 22nd of December because I haven't paid a couple $1,000s they say I owe. You helped me get on my feet, and now I'm here getting sued, and I don't even get to see my son. It's just ridiculous.
Tell you what we'll do. Why don't we start the ball rolling? Why don't I make arrangements for you to take a hair follicle drug test today? And then when those results come back, you can go into the family court with those test results. And if you're clean and not using drugs and haven't used drugs in the last 6 months, because that's going to show up in the hair follicle test, I'm certain that the court's going to give you visitation rights. How about that, Mr. Schneider?
I'm already in proceedings.
I didn't ask. Miss Lewis, this young man used to be a friend of yours. He's not anymore. It is your claim that he asked you to cash a check for him. You said, okay. Took the check, went to your bank, deposited the check, gave him some cash, and the check bounced, causing all kinds of fees. You want to be compensated for both the cash that you gave him and all the fees that were incurred by you as a result of this bounced check.
Correct.
And Mr. Chip says that he never gave you a check, right?
Correct.
You have a copy of the check?
I do indeed.
I'd like to see it, please. Is this the way the check looked when you cashed it?
I never saw the check. He deposited it into the ATM. He was
not true.
present with me.
Shh. I didn't ask you anything.
Your Honor, Chris and Nick were both there when he deposited the check into my account. I never saw the check. I asked to sign it, and he said, no, that's not that kind of check.
Okay. Do you have notification from the bank that it's a bad check?
I have my bank statement. They kept all the paperwork for their fraud department. They didn't give me any of that information. This one shows all the fees that were caused, and this shows the check deposited and the money that he withdrew that day.
What was the date?
It was October 22nd. It was a Thursday, around 7 p.m.
It wasn't October 22nd.
The check was deposited on October 22nd. Then the following day, I went into the bank to check
October 26th, ATM envelope deposit, debit adjustment, $200. So they adjusted it on the 26th.
Yes, that's the day that I went in with my grandmother to figure everything out. She had lent me money to unfreeze my account so I could receive my check from work. Otherwise, I would not have gotten paid.
Tell me what he said he needed the money for.
He called me on October 20th.
24-year-old David Quadra is suing his former friend.
Wedding anniversary of the other woman who was getting married.
We were, Your Honor.
And the date that you selected was?
November 5th?
And that's your wedding anniversary?
Yes, it is.
So your wife, which is the wife? That would be you. Stand up. You got annoyed that they picked the same wedding date as your anniversary? Is that what happened?
I just simply said that we wouldn't be able to make it, and it ended up being a confrontation, yeah.
Well, you ended up not being able to make it because you were...
It was our anniversary.
And you were...
What do you mean?
Annoyed that you picked
yeah.
the same date.
Yeah.
That's what I said.
Yes.
Did you have plans for your wedding anniversary?
Yes, we did.
What were the plans?
We went to Palm Springs for the weekend.
What's your first name?
Demara.
When did Tamara tell you what date she had selected?
I think about a month beforehand.
What did you say to her?
I said that we wouldn't be able to make it.
Is that all you said to her?
I think it went into more that...
Well, if you say to your good friend, I'm not going to be able to make the wedding, the natural response would be, why? If that's how it came down. And your response would have been,
I'm sorry we couldn't make it because it was our wedding anniversary. We already made plans.
well, that would be a reasonable thing. And what did she say to you?
I'm sorry you couldn't make it. It just turned...
Why don't you tell me what happened to Tamara?
I had texted her saying that we were getting married on November 5th, and she said that she was going to be out of town, so she can't make it. And I said, I'm sorry, you can't make it. And then that was pretty much all that was said that day, and then it just, the next day got really bad, and she started
Well,
sending...
tell me what happened the next day.
I would gone to get my dress, and when I was done getting my dress, she had texted me and asked, just being nice like a friend, and asking just details about the wedding, and then she started saying, why did I have to do it on her day? It's her wedding anniversary. And then she sent me a bunch of nasty text messages.
Nasty text messages that said what?
Saying...
Miss Bell, you were hired as a nanny by the defendants to take care of their 2-year-old little boy while they were vacationing in Europe. You were to accompany them. You left on the 13th of July, and shortly thereafter, it is your claim that you were fired. While in Europe, you want the first week of salary, which was agreed on, it's $400.
Yes, Your Honor.
And you want the cost of changing your airline ticket because you left early.
Yes.
The defendants, they say that you were an awful nanny, that they really had problems trusting you with the child, but that they didn't fire you, that you quit on your own, and if you quit on your own, you absorb the cost of going home, and they're counterclaiming for the cost of getting a new nanny. Really?
Yes, Your Honor.
That's not happening. That's ridiculous.
It wasn't the cost of the new nanny, Your Honor. It was the cost incurred for all the expenses that we spent for the change fees for plane tickets and all the other stuff that we had to fly someone in.
That's ridiculous.
Okay.
What I don't understand in this whole thing is if you have somebody that you claim was inappropriate, and how was she inappropriate?
Several reasons. First, when we first got on the airplane, she couldn't take care of my son whatsoever.
Your Honor?
So on our first trip going over from New York to Rome, she wasn't able to take care of my son on the flight, and I had to sit with my son, and she sat with my husband on the plane all the way over to Europe.
And?
So that's when it started.
Go ahead.
So I took care of him. Then when we got to Rome, we got into our hotel, checked into our hotel. We had adjoining suites. She took my son down to the butterfly farm so Joe and I could have breakfast in our room and have room service. She went down for a couple hours, came back. My son was completely sunburned. He